So our final presentation today is from Phil Roberts, who will be presenting Reelin in Unwanted Traffic. Phil is a director of technology at the Global Cyber Alliance and is coming at us today from the Chicago area. Phil has presented here in the past on World IPv6 Day, the World IPv6 launch, Manners, and Cryptech. Phil's first presentation at NANOG was chairing a panel announcing World IPv6 Day at NANOG 51 in Miami in 2011. Welcome back to NANOG, Phil. It's a pleasure to have you back with us today.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. That was a great talk for me to follow. We do not handle DDoS attacks, but we pay attention to the people who set up DDoS attacks and who propagate their malware all over the internet into your networks in order to be able to launch DDoS attacks. And I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. First of all, I come from an organization called the Global Cyber Alliance. We're not-for-profit. We have not-for-profit status in the US. We're a 501c3 if you're familiar with the IRS codes. We have offices in the United States, in the UK, in Europe, and in Singapore. And at GCA, we build programs, partnerships, and tools to make the connected world safer. So what I'd like to talk about today is what can we do about the vast amount of unwanted attack traffic on the internet. And when I talk about attack traffic, I'm talking about something different than the previous speaker. I'm talking about the people who start propagating malware to create bots on the internet. And then those bots are used for the kind of attacks that the previous speaker talked about. But there is an enormous amount of this traffic. Scanning the internet every day, attacking every day. If you have any kind of sensors, you know that you see all kinds of attack traffic all day on them. And what I would like to talk about is whether or not it's possible for us to stop this or reduce this without breaking the internet at the same time, without creating sort of the world's largest block lists to stop traffic, and those have their own issues. So why do we all care? Well, the previous talk gave a really good example of that, but I'll go into that in a little bit. I'm going to talk about the attack traffic that we see. We're monitoring this. This is a bit of a follow-on, or it's a natural follow-on to a talk that George Michelson gave at RIPE. They're doing the same kind of work that we are, really focused on the Asia-Pacific region. So my boss presented something like this at the following RIPE for what we are doing, and we've been talking about it, and we're happy to talk about it here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about what bad looks like, and then I want to have a bit of a discussion about what maybe acceptable levels might be, just some thought-provoking discussion about what it looks like and what we might want to try to do together. And what I would really like is if you operate a network and you're interested in combating this, if you would talk to me, because we'd like to build a group of people who operate networks who are interested in combating the spread of this kind of traffic. So why do we all care? Well, the last talk went into this in great detail. Once these large botnets get set up, and now maybe even smaller than what used to be large botnets get set up, people can launch very damaging attacks against infrastructure, your infrastructure, somebody else's infrastructure. We all remember the big MIRAI botnet of October of 2016, but that wasn't a one-off. That was just one that was one among many, and these things continue. As a result of that attack, though, a lot of regulators and economies started talking about, you really need to change the default passwords on your IoT devices, and that's true. That will be a big help. But the attacks haven't stopped in trying to find those that are vulnerable. And it's not always about, we've been talking about botnets and DDoS attacks in the previous talk, but it's not always that. We see these attacks going out and people setting up things that are downloading MIRAI so they can do botnet attacks in the future. But often these attacks are really just a way to get inside somebody's network. And once they've compromised a device, then they bop over to some other thing that's more important in the network. So it's a range of different kinds of malicious activity that all sort of starts looking the same way. And the thing that I would like to tell you about is that the actors who are behind this are hitting everything all the time. So we have a project at GCA which we call the Automated IoT Defense Ecosystem. And it's a platform that collects and analyzes attacks on IoT devices. And I'm going to talk about IoT devices because that's kind of where we started, and we're very interested in IoT devices. But the nature of the way we detect these attacks work for kind of any Linux thing. So, it could be a server in a data center that's running Linux that would be subjected to the same kind of attack. We expect that what we're doing is going to be something that people use to incorporate into other kinds of products or activities or prevention measures. And the project now has kind of three main components. We have a global honey farm that we've been collecting data on for close to 5 years. And I'm going to talk about that some. It's based on an open source software implementation. We also have our own implementation that we've developed called ProxyPot, which is a proprietary implementation. It collects information about a wider range of possible attacks, and we are continually developing it and enhancing it. And then we have a data visualization and analysis platform that's based on OpenSearch that allows us to look at all the attacks that we've detected. So we have a couple of honey farms. We have a honey farm that we operated for quite a long time. We call it Honey Farm 1. It consists of hundreds of identical sensors based on an open source honeypot. This honeypot basically looks like a Linux-based IoT device. And we set it up and configure it so that it's very easy to compromise. You can kind of hit it with any username, almost any username password combination, and you'll get in. And then we write down everything that you do when you do that. So we've been operating that for a long time. It captures traffic over Telnet and SSH. We track everything. We track where the attack comes from, where the attack's going, credentials that are used in the attack, the nature of the malware that's captured. We use the IP addresses with geolocation services to find out where the attacks are coming from. And we look at the malware hashes and compare it to some public databases to find out, more about the nature of the malware and where else it's been seen in the world. We started a second honey farm in September of 2018, which has a smaller number of sensors. The first one operated from 2018 to 2022. It has about 1,200 sensors, and we've been operating one with 200 sensors since then. The second set of sensors, though smaller, is kind of better distributed geographically, but we have data from both of those periods. ProxyPot is the tool that we're developing. It's our own. It's another honeypot. It captures more data. It captures more kinds of attacks. We take great detailed notes on the information that we get there. We've used it so far to do sort of short-term comparisons to figure out what kind of techniques help mitigate these attacks. We're currently running a honey farm of this, which has about 100 real IoT devices, and then we capture all the traffic that's going to those real devices. So my colleague, Rufo DeFrancisco, developed some slides that show how big a problem this is. This first is a graph of attacks per sensor, and you'll notice that there's a gap there between June and November. And it's not because we don't have data, that was our transition period in going from Honey Farm 1 to Honey Farm 2. But you can see what the scope of the attacks that we detect here per day, per sensor. It's enormous, right? We detected them using the first honey farm. We detect them in the second honey farm. You'll notice the spike here. That was a particular anomaly that we had. But over time, you can see that we have an enormous amount of attack traffic. And these are attacks that aren't what the previous speaker was talking about. These aren't DDoS attacks. These are attacks against a sensor, trying to gain access to it, in order to download malware, which the device can then be used for future malicious activity. So how widespread is this? Well, this kind of gives you an idea about the number of networks involved. In general, on any given day, we would see something in the previous Honeyfarm, we would see something on the order of attacks coming from 3,000 different networks on any given day. It's dropped a little bit with the second set of sensors, but still, we're talking about 2,000 different networks participating. And over our 5-year period, we've seen attacks from, I believe, 15,000 different networks. So, this traffic is coming from all over the place. People are scanning the internet, scanning networks, finding vulnerable devices, attacking them, then incorporating them into their further propagation of malicious software. What do these attackers look like? Well, we like to call this "some players just don't quit." These are 20 IP addresses we've been tracking, I believe since the inception of this, and they're still active. I don't know if you can see the explanatory thing, but red means that this IP address is attacking our sensors every day of the week. So these are all of the weeks in our data collection. You can see that every day of the week they attack some of our sensors. The yellow ones is that they are attacked some days of the week. And you'll notice there are some lines, some vertical lines. Those are